On this episode of Travelogue, we'll be taking you on a whistle-stop tour of northwestern Beijing. It's an electronics heaven at Zhongwansun, followed by high-altitude views of the entire city at the CCTV tower. We'll be a little bit nosy by taking a peek at university life with the boys at the Aardvarks Rugby Club. You definitely can't come to this area without getting a bit of culture at the Summer Palace, finishing with life at the student stronghold of Wudalco. Enjoy!
Beijing, ancient capital, modern metropolis, the home of emperors and the heart of a great cultural tradition. Beijing, old and sedate, young and dynamic, a modern open city on the fast track to reinventing itself. Beijing, where two worlds mingle. Being Beijing is experiencing the life, seeing the sights, sampling the culture. That's being Beijing.
And welcome to Travelogue. I'm in the northwestern part of Beijing, in an area more commonly known as the Silicon Valley of China. It's Zhongwansun, a technological haven where some of China and the world's largest IT companies reside.
For most first-time visitors, Beijing is a wonderful surprise. If you come expecting tradition and culture, you will also find a vibrant, modern city. If you expect to see a sprawling cosmopolitan worthy of its place as one of the world's superpowers, you will definitely be treated to some history and a deep sense of heritage. Make your way up to the Haidian district and you'll find these two worlds side by side. The capital's answer to California's Silicon Valley sits almost on top of China's oldest and most revered universities. It is home to two of the most famous universities in China, Tsinghua and Beijing. Along with more than 70 other institutions of higher education and 232 scientific research institutions, Zhongwansun is the most scientist and engineer-intensive place in China. Its similarities with the US Silicon Valley come mostly from the sourcing of the graduates directly into jobs within big Zhongwansun-based companies.
Right, well, you'll be spending a lot of time in taxis, most likely, during your stay in Beijing. Here's a few pointers. Firstly, the meters start between 10 and 11 kuai depending on the time of day, and make sure you pick up the receipt at the end, because that's the only way you'll be able to track down any stuff if you do leave it in the taxi. And finally, and probably most importantly, don't be scared to hand over your telephone to the driver who can speak to a person at your destination. They're used to that. I mean, they know that a lot of foreigners don't speak Chinese, so give that a go.
When as a technological hub, Zhongwansun really is Beijing's main electronics market. The place you come to buy all the gadgets, phones, laptops, computers, consoles, and pretty much anything you've ever needed to make your life faster, easier, or at any rate more leisurely.
Well, I was just getting some printing questions out of the way, but I've walked into one of the dozens of tall buildings here in Zhongwansun, and it really is an electronic heaven. So for all you gadget geeks out there, when you're in Beijing, come to Zhongwansun. You can find just about anything. Have a look around. Here we've got laptops, Apple Macs. You can even charge your iPod if you're running low on batteries. It's not the only thing that you can find in these buildings, not just computers. I'm here on the computer floor, but if you go upstairs, we've got mobile phones, downstairs computer games, but don't be scared about having to barter. Not all of these shops make you come up with a price. For instance, here, they give you the price. So this is the lowest. You can't go lower than that. You can't barter with them. But at least you know you'll be getting the price that you asked for. 10,999 kuai for this laptop. But if you do want to cut your bargaining teeth, there are many buildings where you can do that.
At the end of the day, whether you're a budding amateur photographer, a weekend stay-at-home computer game nut, a gym freak who can't exercise without his iPod, or the average guy who just needs his laptop fixing, Zhongwensun is the place to come for all things electronic. Zhongwensun is where all you geeks and gadget lovers out there can take revenge for the countless weekends you've been dragged around the shops by your girlfriend. It's payback time.
Well, I'm feeling a little peckish after a hard session of bargaining. And one of the great things about Zhongwensun is you'll always be able to find nice little restaurants directly next to the electronics stores. Very practical.
That said, it does also provide good common ground on the culinary front. Like anywhere else in Beijing, you'll be able to find every type of food to satisfy even the pickiest of palates. I decided to try out a couple of places so that I could provide a more in-depth analysis of the food situation in this part of town. The things I have to do. First stop, a wonderfully intricate Chinese duck restaurant situated in the heart of Zhongwensun. This place follows the traditional basic layout of Chinese restaurants, with big tables in the middle, flanked on the sides by private rooms. You'll find that in Beijing, you often don't have to pay for one of these private rooms. Simply book in advance. This particular restaurant was unfortunately closed when I arrived, which is normal for the bigger eating establishments. They tend to stick to the 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. lunchtime schedule. That said, many of the smaller restaurants tend to be more flexible, with a sizable amount staying open 24 hours a day. No eating for now, though. I'll make a more desperate choice when my stomach starts munching on itself.
Dear distinguished guests, welcome to Central Oriental Tower. The 405 meters elevator tower is the highest in Beijing. We will take you to the open air observation platform first, then go down 13 meters that lead to the Olympic Park.
Next stop is the CCTV tower. Located just off the 3rd ring road on the northwest side of the city, the tower is a hidden gem. When you come up to it, you have quite literally found the needle in the haystack. It's a bad pun on its appearance, but still. If this were any less of a city, with fewer attractions, I think the tower would feature much more prominently in tourist promotions. As it is, there are so many things to see in Beijing, especially of historical and cultural interest, that the poor old tower tends to get overlooked. But it's definitely worth it. Interestingly enough, having been up the Eiffel Tower, I get a very similar feeling when I reach the top of this one. I'm in no way comparing the two, just saying that I love the open-air 360-degree view of an entire city.
Okay, personal recommendation. If it's a clear and sunny day like it is today, come here. Come to the CCTV tower. We're up at 238 meters and the wind is blowing. I'm even jumping in the wind. Look how much I move. It's beautiful. The whole of Beijing sprawling across me.
Another feature at the top of the tower is that there are signs with the distances to some of the world's most famous sites, so you can actually see how far and in which direction the Eiffel Tower is. Again, you have a good chance to combine tourism with some gastronomic activity. Below the observation deck is a revolving restaurant where you can enjoy a 5-star Sino-Western buffet whilst Beijing revolves around you. Clearly out of luck when it came to finding Chinese food, I decided to go for some foreign food instead, and I headed to Wudalco, a brisk taxi ride along the 3rd ring road. With its cosmopolitan mix of residents, Wudalco has an extremely diverse range of restaurants. I got a tip from a friend that there is a delicious Indian restaurant tucked away in the Wu, as it is sometimes affectionately known by the foreign students there. As I walk into Ganges, I'm struck by the authenticity of the place. I'm even greeted by the familiar face of Shilpa Shetty, the Indian Bollywood star who famously won the Celebrity Big Brother series in the UK. More importantly, I'm starving and looking forward to some good grub. Now, in the majority of the foreign restaurants in this part of town, and in Beijing as a whole, the kitchens tend to have at least one homegrown chef, so you'll get your authentic taste of home away from home. Another point that all these restaurants share is that most of them will deliver. In fact, this is true with the majority of things in Beijing. From big restaurants to shops, passing by McDonald's, all these establishments are more than happy to deliver to your home, almost always for no added cost, although that depends on the proximity. Beijing is broken up by ring roads, so it's very easy to find your position according to these. Just think of it as one giant grid with the Forbidden City at its center. There are sculpting and time cafes dotted throughout Beijing. This one, however, is special. That's mainly due to its proximity to the universities, as well as being on the outside of Huaqingjiayuan, a residential complex shared by foreigners and Chinese. This results in a place where people come overwhelmingly to study, but also to have a chat with friends or meet a language exchange partner. It's a cultural melting pot where it can really be said that East meets West. There's free wireless, so many people come here simply to check their emails. Right, so I didn't have a laptop, I didn't have a language exchange partner, and I clearly didn't have any friends. I was ready to get out of there. However, just so I would have a point of reference, I decided to check out the adjoining cafe called The Bridge. Though very similar to the Sit Cafe, there's definitely a more foreign air to this place. Maybe less about practicing your Mandarin, and more about enjoying a good cup of coffee or some decent food. It also has a lovely roof garden, which is a perfect place to come with friends on a lazy Sunday afternoon. I met a group that highlighted the mix of people that come here to relax. One was Spanish, another one was Norwegian, and a third was Chinese American. You'll find that the coffee shop area of Wudalco really is a hub of cultural exchange. Friends, teachers, students and travellers come for some good 24-hour Western food and drinks.
Oh God, I'm so not going to make it. Well, here we are. I'm actually invading the pitch right now. We've got a normal, everyday pitch on our right with football going on. That's not a surprise. So have a look behind, a couple of teams competing behind me. But the big surprise is that we've got rugby here. You're not dreaming. We've got rugby in Beijing. Two teams are playing right behind me. I'm going to come across so you can see them behind me. We have two teams. We have a Chinese team playing a foreigners team. So you see behind me, some of the guys are just warming up before a big game against Longbang, the Chinese team. And it's actually a bit funny to be seeing some of the rugby here.
Hey, welcome to TRAVELOGUE.
Welcome to TRAVELOGUE.
Welcome to TRAVELOGUE. Welcome to TRAVELOGUE. Welcome to TRAVELOGUE. Welcome to TRAVELOGUE.
I'm sorry.
Hi, TRAVELOGUE. Welcome to TRAVELOGUE. Welcome to TRAVELOGUE. Come on, the Alberts.
Right. I think it's good enough for me for the moment.
I was very surprised to find that not only is rugby very much alive in Beijing, but there is actually a league here. It consists of 5 teams of various nationalities. There is the Beijing Aardvarks, which is a student team made up of at least 10 different countries. There's also a Japanese side, a Chinese side, a team made up of Pacific Islanders, who I'm told are as friendly as they are big, and an older expat team. I hear that the Aardvarks Rugby Club has been around for over 10 years and prides itself on the diversity of its players' origins. Just in case you're wondering, the name comes from some bright spark over a decade ago, realising that the AA in Aardvarks would put it at the top of all alphabetical searches in magazines and such things. Who said rugby players were just mindless thugs? Having seen some fast-paced, hard-hitting rugby, as well as all the wonderful camaraderie that comes afterwards, I decided it was high time to go and see the universities where many of these people study.
So I'm relaxing in the heart of the BLCU, the Beijing Language and Culture University in the Haidian district. Now, this entire part is in a place called Wudalco, which has lots of other universities, but this one is predominantly full of full of foreigners. And the foreigners can come here for a short-term or long-term courses. We've got 1-week courses, 1 month, or an entire year. You can pick up your own degree here, and you can even come and do a bit of martial arts, a bit of wushu.
Well, continuing on from our hidden treasure theme, it really turns out that my decision to explore a few of the universities was a good one.
I'm here in Tsinghua, one of China's oldest and most prestigious universities. It's the academic hub of China, where we literally have dozens of universities spattered around in this area. Now, serious brain work goes on here, and I actually feel slightly more intelligent just walking around. Do you think I fit in? Have a look.
Though not at the top of the guidebook recommendations, it's definitely worth seeing a few of the academic establishments, such as Beida, that's Peking University, and Tsinghua. Both are set in wonderful grounds. One of my favourite places was the lake at Beida. It's amusingly called the No-Name Lake. People come here to relax, study, meet friends, or spend an evening whispering sweet nothings in the ears of a loved one. It's a pretty romantic spot. Not that I'm averse to romance in any way, but I thought I'd be polite and get the camera out of the face of these young lovers.
Take your time, guys, you know.
As the main student area, Wudaokou is renowned for cheap beer and late-night partying. So if drunk college kids are your thing, head there. I'm just kidding. It's a fun place anyway. Those are the characters for Wudaokou, if you're wondering. Much like the more central parts of Beijing, the Wu remains bustling throughout the night. It is centered around a bookstore, which is flanked by bars and restaurants. Well, in any case, I was done with books and technology for the day and was ready to hit the beers. Seeing as I was in the area, I thought it would be a perfect time to catch up with some friends. They happen to live right at the heart of Wudaokou, so let's go. There are literally thousands of students from abroad who come to Beijing to study Mandarin. Some do this as part of an exchange program at their respective universities. Pippa, Lara, Gus and Lawrence are 4 such students who are studying at Beida and have come here on an exchange from Oxford University for a year. They very kindly let me snoop around their house for your viewing pleasure, so enjoy. In terms of rent, it costs them 13,000 renminbi a month. That said, they do live in a pretty luxurious apartment that's even equipped with a rooftop garden. Whatever happened to slumming it up as a student? But when you compare rental prices to Europe, 3,000 kwai a month each seems an absolute bargain. Definitely the kind of place I'd want to live in. Wow. Beautiful, beautiful rooftop balcony. Actually, wait, can you get a bit of light, see me? Actually, but don't focus on me. Go and check out some of the sights out there. It's good fun catching up. They rave about what a great opportunity this year has been, and how living in this part of the city has been a really enjoyable experience. Anyway, that's all the time we've got for tonight. Big day tomorrow. I'm heading to a seriously big garden. I'm going to be up early, so just a few cheeky drinks for me. Situated on the western outskirts of the Haidian district, the Summer Palace is 15 kilometers from central Beijing. It's one of the capital's most visited sites and teems with tour groups from all over China and beyond. The Summer Palace occupies an area of 2.9 square kilometers, 3/4 of which is water. Once a playground for the imperial court, it is an opulent mixture of over 3,000 structures, including palace temples, gardens, pavilions, lakes and corridors. The Summer Palace is the archetypal Chinese garden and is ranked amongst the most noted classical gardens in the world. In 1998, it was listed as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. This area was known as the administrative area, though the Summer Palace was almost solely used as a place of relaxation for the ruling royalty. In fact, the work area was only added because an emperor enjoyed his time too much here. Therefore, he moved his office here so that he could spend as much time as possible. You can spot the administrative area from the decorations and symbols outside. On average, more than 30,000 people visit here a day, so don't be surprised to find big crowds right from the opening time at 6 a.m. up to the closing of the park at 9 p.m.
Now, when you come to the Summer Palace, I thoroughly recommend that you spend at least half a day here, simply because there are so many things to see. Now, I've been taken around to an area that's almost solely dedicated to living, having fun, relaxing, eating and drinking. And there's a tiny bit that's dedicated to working. So that suits me fine. Plenty of play and really not that much work. Oh. I'll keep going.
Just so you know, I did manage to avoid hitting the little boy. Stroll around the Hall of Happiness and Longevity. It's decorated with many period pieces. Thanks to the artifacts, the trees and the feng shui, the atmosphere in this part is extremely soothing. Despite the big crowds, there are a few quiet spots, so when you find one, take it all in like I am. I'm in the living quarters, which might as well have the motto, no work and lots of play. This suited me just fine. It also leads onto the Changlan, which means literally the long corridor. This shaded walkway is decorated with some 10,000 painted scenes, each one different, and sits alongside the refreshing looking Kunming Lake. Feeling hungry? I always am. So head to the Imperial Restaurant. Its Chinese name is Tingli Guan, which basically means listen to the birds singing hall. Did you hear that? That wasn't edited in, I swear. Anyway, it's grand, and you can even sit at a chair or table once used by emperors and empresses. A restaurant like this requires prior reservation, and by that, I don't mean ringing up the day before. Interestingly enough, you don't order any of the food. What you do is you dictate your price range, and the exquisitely crafted foods are chosen for you. My price range, unfortunately, dictated some noodles from a smaller restaurant outside, but I was happy to see the true food of royalty. Look how delicately made everything is. It seems almost more like art than food. Personally, I'd feel guilty ruining such masterpieces with my mouth, though being the polite gentleman I am, if I was offered a taste, I wouldn't turn it down.
I am starving, but I've been told this is strictly off limits, purely for your viewing pleasure rather than my eating pleasure. So I'm gonna be a good boy. I'm gonna be a good boy.
Okay, don't blame me for accidentally putting that piece of art into my stomach. I think it's safer there. The Kunming Lake is one of the main attractions of the Summer Palace. It can be explored by boat during the summer or skated over during the winter. Hire out a boat and you can lethargically spend a day on the water or explore the sights on the lake. You can hire out small two-man boats all the way up to large party boats. Don't miss the highly photogenic 17-arch bridge or the stunning Jade Belt Bridge. As there's so much to see in this area, don't fall into the trap of spending all your time on the water. Make your way up to the Buddhist Incense Tower. It's one of the best preserved and brightest parts of the Summer Palace. Above all, it's the highest. So for all you budding amateur photographers out there, do not miss this one. You can capture an entire area ranked amongst the most noted and classical gardens of the world. There are plenty of things to see all the way to the top. Artifacts dating back over many dynasties are on display for everyone's enjoyment. Strangely enough, 100 years ago, they didn't think to put in any elevators here. It's a steep climb, but you will be rewarded with sweeping views of the whole grounds, as well as a glimpse of the fragrant hills. It's a perfect time to sit, catch your breath, and take in the beauty of this magnificent place. It's simply stunning. Like the icing on a cake, it was a perfect ending to a great day. Unfortunately, that's all the time we've got left today. But I really hope you've enjoyed our little insight into this part of Beijing, an area where tradition and modernity mix seamlessly together, where a rapidly increasing influx of foreigners can enjoy the fast-paced, technology-orientated focus of Zhongwanshun, whilst also but a few kilometers away coming around for a stroll around the Summer Palace and witnessing tradition at its very best. I'm Mark Edwards, and I'll see you very soon on another episode of Travelogue. Be treated to some history and a deep sense of heritage. Make your way up to the Haidian district and you'll find these two worlds side by side. The capital's answer to California's Silicon Valley sits almost on top of China's oldest and most revered universities. It is home to two of the most famous universities in China, Tsinghua and Beijing. Along with more than 70 other institutions of higher education and 232 scientific research institutions, Zhongwanshun is the most scientist and engineer-intensive place in China. Its similarities with the US Silicon Valley come mostly from the sourcing of the graduates directly into jobs within big Zhongwanshun-based companies. Right, well, you'll be spending a lot of time in taxis, most likely.
Beijing, ancient capital, modern metropolis, the home of emperors and the heart of a great cultural tradition. Beijing, old and sedate, young and dynamic, a modern open city on the fast track to reinventing itself. Beijing, where two worlds mingle. Being Beijing is experiencing the life, seeing the sights, sampling the culture. That's being Beijing.
During your stay in Beijing, here's a few pointers. Firstly, the meters start between 10 and 11 kuai depending on the time of day, and make sure you pick up the receipt at the end, because that's the only way you'll be able to track down any stuff if you do leave it in the taxi. And finally, and probably most importantly, don't be scared to hand over your telephone to the driver who can speak to a person at your destination. They're used to that. I mean, they know that a lot of foreigners don't speak Chinese, so give that a go. When as a technological hub, Zhongwanshun really is Beijing's main electronics market. The place you come to buy all the gadgets, phones, laptops, computers, consoles, and pretty much anything you've ever needed to make your life faster, easier, or at any rate more leisurely. Well, I was just getting some printing questions out of the way, but I've walked into one of the On this episode of Travelogue, we'll be taking you on a whistle-stop tour of northwestern Beijing. It's an electronics heaven at Zhongwanshun, followed by high-altitude views of the entire city at the CCTV tower. We'll be a little bit nosy by taking a peek at university life with the boys at the Aardvarks Rugby Club. You definitely can't come to this area without getting a bit of culture at the Summer Palace, finishing with life at the student stronghold of Wudalco. Enjoy. I'm Mark Edwards, and welcome to Travelogue.
I'm in the northwestern part of Beijing, in an area more commonly known as the Silicon Valley of China. It's Zhongguancun, a technological haven where some of China and the world's largest IT companies reside.
For most first-time visitors, Beijing is a wonderful surprise. If you come expecting tradition and culture, you will also find a vibrant, modern city. If you expect to see a sprawling cosmopolitan worthy of its place as one of the world's superpowers, you will definitely